I don't know about you, but I got tired of getting slam dunked rejection after rejection after rejection. And I spent the last 10 years making the mistakes and 20 minutes scripting this video to show you practical advice on emailing sync companies. Now, I've already showed you on this page how to write an effective email to music supervisors and music catalogs. So this video, we're gonna be focusing on some unconventional tips when you're trying to pitch to sync licensing company. Now, we've gone over this before and there's a template included in the description, but the 20-second recap of how to email properly is keeping your email short. You don't need to share your whole life story, not making everything about you. So sharing something that you've seen from their website, like a playlist or a project they've recently worked on, and tell why it resonated with you. Providing a link and not an attachment. And lastly, thanking them for their time. They're very busy. We're gonna hone in on that later in this video. So a small gesture like thanking them for their time is gonna go a long way. That being said, let's jump immediately into step one, which is stop apologizing when you're sending your emails. This is coming from experience. It's almost like you're rejecting yourself before you give them a chance to make an opinion about you. You know what I'm talking about. Here's a couple of examples like, I know you're probably super busy, or sorry for taking up your time, anything like that. And I know why you do it. You're trying to be respectful. I used to do this as well, but there's no shame at all for reaching out for opportunities. It shows more confidence to skip the apology and just replace it with the simple, I appreciate your time instead. Now, this is not saying ask for a big commitment on the first email. I'm not asking them to take time out of their day to meet up with me for coffee or asking for advice. I'm making sure I'm providing value by providing music. And after we build connection, then we can start asking for commitment. Number two, we're gonna jump into email subject lines. My favorite by far email subject line that I've shared before, and for some reason gets the most responses, is sending the email with a subject line that says music in all lower caps. There's some psychology behind why this works. I used to work for a music library and we would have to respond immediately to our clients. We wanted to make sure that gap between receiving the email and responding to them and providing whatever information, that window of opportunity is as short as possible. So anytime we received an email that said the word music, we didn't know if it was from a client, we didn't know if it was a new submission, potential projects, or even a fan. We wanted to make sure that we open up that email to assure that we're not missing any emails that may be sent to potential clients. Now, you can also be creative with your email subject line. Something I've done when I pitch out to music supervisors is I've named different characters' names from the show. For example, on Bel Air, I've made playlists that said Ashley's Spotify playlist. Ashley's a character from the show. I pretended that I created tracks that may fit that character's sound for the show, and I called it a Spotify playlist. You could do different things like blending two artists together, like Bob Marley or Travis Scott. I don't know, be creative with it, but that's a different way that you can also stand out when pitching emails. This next tip is not a hard rule. Take it with a grain of salt, but I avoid pitching on Fridays. Typically, if you think about the average work week, most people are already checked out mentally on Fridays. They're thinking about the weekend. They're not thinking about work in that moment. So that may not be the best time to send an unsolicited email. Most labels will send out email blasts on Fridays as well for any artist they may have that has new music. I want to avoid competition, so I typically send emails between Tuesdays and Thursdays. Any day between Tuesday and Thursday is the sweet spot usually. There typically tends to be fewer distractions midweek and you're more focused on work. When I was working for the music library I worked for, Signature Tracks, I learned from my boss, also a mentor to me, to send emails early in the morning. So before COVID, when music supervisors were going into the office, he would send emails at 6 or 7 a.m. right when they're getting ready for work or maybe starting their routine, because typically they would be more likely to respond in that moment through their phone than they would be when they actually started working and opened up the 50 to 100 emails they may have to get to when they're starting to get to work in the office. Now, like I said, this is not a hard rule. I haven't sent thousands of cold emails to give a definitive answer if the morning trick works or not, but it was an interesting tip that opened up my brain to think about the psychology of when to pitch. Number four, which is super important, especially if you're pitching to music supervisors, is do not ask to include your link of music in the first email. Just include the link. Most people in this industry are going to skim through your emails. They receive about 50 to 100 emails per day on the lower side. So having your music in the first email is super key. This is going to save them the trouble of asking to send your music. They don't have time to respond to every single email saying, yes, you can send me music. Just do it in the first email and make the first impression count. And notice I said link and not attachment. You do not want to max out the storage in their inbox by sending attachments, making sure it's a streaming and downloadable link, especially if it's a music supervisor. You want to make sure it's a downloadable link. That way, if they like the track and it could be used for one of their future projects, they can have that in their playlist already and not have to track you down for a download link. Now, typically I keep 3 to 10 songs in a download link. Some libraries are going to ask for 3 to 5. Some libraries may ask for 10. When I'm pitching to music supervisors directly, I keep it up to 10 because anything more than that is a little bit overboard, and anything less than 3 is not enough to really show them the quality and versatility of the music. Number 5, you're going to pitch as if the person is skimming your email, because most likely that's really what they're doing. I mentioned earlier keeping my email short, but let's give you a visual of why that's important. I'm going to give you 2 examples on the screen right now. You're going to have 10 seconds to read both of these emails. Here's a long example. Here's a short example. You're going to tell me right now in the comments below, which one are you most prone to respond to? Just like your time is valuable, and I don't want to give you a whole bunch of fluff in these videos when you're watching it, their time is also valuable. So leave out the fluff and keep in the important stuff. Number 6, this is honed into me from my old boss. I wanted to make sure I never made any mistakes when I sent out the email, even though we're human, mistakes happen, but triple check your emails. Professionalism is important. You got to remember, these people are working with people from the top of the top, executive people working at Netflix or different big companies. So you want to treat them as if they're the executive at Netflix. Treat your emails as a professional. If you're going to mention their name in the email, spell it correctly. Make sure there's no grammatical errors. Do not talk to them with a whole bunch of slang like they're your friend. Making sure it's personal, not just a copy and pasted template. And lastly, enough with ChatGPT. There's nothing more distasteful than a generic ChatGPT response that says invoking or overusing words like brilliant. It is so easy to catch on that type of writing. And if you're going to use it, make sure it sounds like your tone. Before we get into the last point, we're going to get into number 7, which is including genres in the body of your email. For example, if you write out the type of music you make very briefly in the email, make sure you say, here's a selection of anthemic female empowering hip hop if that's the style you make. Music supervisors and even sometimes music libraries will treat their email like a search engine. Just because you didn't receive a response in 2 days does not mean 2 to 4 months from now, when they're searching for anthemic female empowering hip hop, that they won't use your track. My point being is that music supervisors at some points may be working on multiple projects. So just because they don't respond in that moment doesn't mean that it's not useful or valuable later. So having those keywords almost like metadata in your body of email helps your tracks come up in their search when they're going through their inbox later on. Also, here's a little bonus tip. Highlight any recent placements or achievements that you have at the very end of your email as well. It looks great when you're pitching and shows that you've been in the industry or you've been connected within the music industry for a while. Lastly, and I'm speaking to a specific type of person, it's almost like the younger version of myself because I've been through this myself. Do not let fear get in the way of you sending that email. There is definitely anxiety and fear behind getting rejected, or even worse, not even receiving a response. By default, you'll give yourself an excuse on why you don't think you should send that email, but it is your job to replace that excuse with a reason of why you should send that email. No one's gonna take your music career more serious than you, and learning to care about your art and your creativity far more than you care about the judgment of the person on that other side of that screen is the only way you're gonna give yourself a shot in this industry. If you found any value in this video, I invite you to hit this video with a like and a comment. It means a lot. And if you're not already subscribed, I welcome you to join my channel because I post more valuable sync licensing information like this. I like to share advanced sync licensing tips from my personal 11 years of experience. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.